Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, whoever you are, we thank you for listening and welcome to Carry Out Conversations. I'm Dave.
I'm Noah.
I'm John.
And tonight we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, but first of all, we just had dinner. What did we have for dinner, guys?
Burger King.
Kruger
Hashtag not affiliated.
Yeah, not a sponsor yet.
And so when you get fast food, you know, you're thinking in the back of your mind, oh, you know, this kind of sounds good. You know, I haven't had such and such in a while. I haven't had a pizza from here. I haven't had a burger from there. And then when you finally eat it, what happens?
You almost instantly regret it.
Buyer's remorse.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it sounded so good when we were making the decision to get Burger King.
It really did.
But then when I got the food, about halfway through my sandwich, I was just like, man, I wasted $7.
So the way I feel about Burger King, and I just realized this, is it's okay. You guys have ever been to like a fair, like a street fair, like
Yeah,
a carnival? So the food is it's pretty good normally, actually. Like get some crazy fried stuff. It's awesome, you know. Well, Burger King is like the street food that got rejected, but then a person from McDonald's made it into something else. That's exactly what it tastes like. It tastes like
harsh.
McDonald's tried to do street food.
See, the thing, I kind of disagree on that one a little bit, only because you go to a street carnival and you've got all of those different food smells at once, and it smells horrible.
Yeah.
But then the food tastes good for the most part.
I
the best
still
carnival-
love fake nacho cheese.
Yeah,
Nothing
fake
can
nacho
beat
cheese
fake nacho
slaps.
Yeah.
The best carnival food, in my opinion, is hands down like the elephant ears. Those are so good.
Are they made from real elephant?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
The 2-pound turkey leg.
2
is-
pound turkey. What is
Oh.
this, medieval times?
I mean, have you ever been to?
I have not.
I haven't either.
Have
but
either of you ever had bacon on a stick?
I've had
No.
bacon.
I've had
It's bacon, like on a stick, covered in barbecue sauce and then smoked.
Bacon's
That
overrated.
sounds good though.
Like severely.
Mm.
Like severely overrated. It's not bad. I like bacon, especially crispy bacon.
Crispy bacon. Crispy bacon's the only way to go though.
Yeah, it's true. But
Any
unless there's any other opinions here, Dave.
Yeah. So I wanted to get into 3 questions, guys. What
Okay.
were they?
Okay.
Okay. So you guys may remember, or Noah, you're pretty young. I don't even know if you were alive when this happened. You guys might remember there was a little case a number of years ago about a lady who spilled coffee in her lap.
Yes. It was hot.
Yep.
I was like 12 or 10 when that happened.
Yeah. So what do we remember from the media coverage around that time?
This crazy old bat suing McDonald's.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just kind of, they always
That's
made
what
it
they
out
said.
to be like she was the worst of, she was the worst of the worst. Now, granted, if you look into the case, yeah, there were a couple of things that she did wrong. They did order it extra hot. So McDonald's made it extra hot for her. Instead of putting it in the cup holder, she put it in between her legs.
yeah.
And as they were pulling out, for whatever reason, she, clenched or whatever and spilt it. So, I mean, she is at fault, but at the same time, it's just, obviously it's a horrible thing 'cause you don't want anybody to get hurt. But, it seems like the media made it out like she was just some crazy old woman that was just out for attention.
Yep. So, in a similar vein, what do either of you know about 3 Mile Island? I know that seems out of left field compared to what we were just talking about, but 3 Mile Island, one of the biggest nuclear accidents in America. What do you know about it? Anything?
I know absolutely nothing about that. We should go there for a company trip.
That could be interesting.
Field trip.
I know I wasn't alive back then too, because I think it was what 1979,
70 something.
78,
Yeah.
78, 79.
I wasn't alive either.
I do remember like hearing a little bit about it, like reading some stuff about it, but I don't know a whole lot.
And finally, did OJ kill his wife?
Yeah.
yes, the glove fit until they threw it in the dryer.
And then they had to acquit
Yes,
because the glove didn't fit.
the glove does not fit, so you must acquit.
Yes. So the reason I bring all 3 of those things up is leading into our topic tonight. It's public perception versus reality.
Hmm.
And I brought up the OJ case specifically because that's an example where everyone thinks they know better than the judge and the jury. Like everyone knows, in quotation marks, he did it. And that is likely true, but none of us were in that courtroom, so we can't judge for certain.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the biggest things that has shaken everybody's faith in our legal system. And I think that's a huge problem because now, I'm not even talking about murder cases, but now anything happens and people draw judgments based on media coverage.
Yeah.
And even if a court case or whatever comes out contrary to whatever people believe, they just judge more harshly, like, oh, you were wrong, the judge was wrong, the jury was wrong, and such. So I wanted to discuss that tonight.
Well, it's kind of an issue of like the idea of the mob, you know, like the mob rule, which is kind of what republics are founded against, like this concept of pure democracy, that the majority should just be able to crush the opposition because they have a couple more votes or a couple more people on their side. And the great thing about a limited representative constitutional republic is the minority position, whether it's the right or the left that given year, is protected by certain checks and balances, or they're supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be. But with things not appearing as they seem, even, and maybe you didn't bring this up on purpose, but even more than the OJ thing, I think of the JFK assassination.
Oh, no.
Does anybody actually believe that was the guy?
I haven't read up on it, so
because,
I don't know.
like, okay, if you haven't read up on it, we don't have to get into it. All I'm saying is, like, LBJ just, like, turned around and did a lot of stuff different than, you know.
If you want, we'll record a special half-hour segment where you explain the JFK assassination.
We'll have to because like the ballistics don't make any sense, and there was 2 shooters. It's okay.
Well, see, so what's interesting about all of that is, you know, the JFK thing happened back in the 60s, and, you know, as horrible as it is, we can only take what is given to us.
Yeah.
So, you know, you watch the media, and this is something that I'll get into about something else here in a moment too, but you watch the media or you watch these, you know, History Channel shows and all these conspiracy theories, these books and stuff like that, and we're only given what they want to give us. And
Yes.
that leads me into also like what you were saying that I find very interesting about like the OJ case and, you know, 3 Mile Island and the McDonald's case and things like that. We can only accept what the media gives us.
Yes.
Were we in that courtroom listening to the OJ case? No. What were we doing? We were glued to our TVs or the radio station after after they released that day or whatever, talking about the case and talking about the evidence and things like that. We're only given what the media wants to give us.
Yeah. I remember it being shoved in our faces too. Like I couldn't watch my cartoons because every station was covering this.
Yeah. I remember the day it quote unquote happened, like when they did the whole police chase, is, you know, we were at a bowling alley and the entire bowling alley basically shut down because every single TV had the police chase on there.
Wow.
And I mean, I just wanted to go bowling. I was, you know, I was 10 at the time, I think, something like that. You know, I didn't care. I didn't know who O.J. Simpson was. And to this day, I really still don't care or know who he was. But I mean,
He played the football and then he killed his
Yeah.
wife.
And he was in a few Leslie Nielsen films.
Who?
OJ.
No, who's Leslie Nielsen?
Leslie Nielsen. You don't know who Leslie Nielsen is?
Age gap people.
No.
That's true. Airplane, Naked Gun.
Naked Gun?
Yes.
And Naked Gun 2.
Yeah,
Naked
I
Gun
didn't.
2 and a quarter or
I didn't,
something like that.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
the
don't
first
remember.
one, but I'll definitely know the second one. Okay, you just said Airplane and Naked Gun. These sound like fake movies.
These
These are totally real movies. These were farces. These were not
Yes.
serious movies. They were deliberately ridiculous.
Okay, you've at least heard the Shirley, you can't be serious. Yes. And don't call me Shirley. You've at least heard that phrase before.
No.
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, well, no, so you guys are like...
So we're gonna go ahead and find a new co-host. So this is
No, no,
Noah's
no.
last show
No,
with
no,
us.
no, no.
We are taking applications right now.
you guys always like talk about this age gap with films but the problem with the argument is I bet, except maybe Jonathan. Jonathan, you are one of the few people I know that could actually give me a run for my money on film knowledge. But I bet I know way more movies that you don't know about that are better than the ones I don't know about.
Doubtful.
Not doubtful. Because the movies that I go out and search for, I don't go out for movies that are just going to entertain. Like the way I approach, oh gosh, there's no way for me to say this without sounding like a pretentious tool, is there?
Probably not.
Okay.
You're already there, dude.
Yeah,
Just go
yeah,
for
I know.
it.
Okay. You know Adrian Brody, the actor?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything like his movies, that style of film. I love Adrian
Okay.
Brody.
Well, and see, that's kind of that leads me again into what we're talking about. The perception of it is, you are geared towards
Sad.
his style of movies. I thought he did a very good job in The Village. I know The Village is a very
Not a movie.
underrated movie. Everybody hated that movie for whatever reason, and I loved it.
No.
And I thought Adrian Brody did a great job in that
No,
movie.
everybody loved The Village, and it was garbage.
See, I've always heard different. Like
No.
everybody didn't like it.
No, everyone loved it. Same with Signs.
Signs was amazing.
Signs was an awful film.
No, it was an amazing film.
God killed in the story of that movie. God killed his wife. Okay, she died in a car accident. Right? She died in a car accident. Why? What was the big message? So, and then he left the pastorate, and then the only point of her death was so that at the end of the movie, they would know to hit the thing with a bat.
Water is what killed it. It was the whole storyline. But
They're the dumbest aliens ever.
But again, this leads back into our topic here of the perception of it. You take the perception of, he blamed God for killing his wife. God didn't kill his wife. He blamed God for that happening. It happened. Things happen, like all the time out in the world. JFK assassination, 3 Mile Island, O.J. Simpson case. I could go on and on. Casey Anthony, JonBenet Ramsey. All of these cases, these things that happen, and everybody takes the perception of, God would never let something, never let something so awful happen. God gives us a free will. And
Unfortunately, people use it to be evil.
right.
True. Yeah.
But what you said right there, and I know that you don't mean it.
No,
because I know
that's not my
it's
theological perspective
right,
at all.
It's the movie perception of it of, if God hadn't
Yeah.
killed his wife or hadn't caused that wreck to happen, then all of this other stuff wouldn't have happened and things like that.
The point is if we're talking about perception, the reason Signs doesn't work, if the perspective you have throughout a story shifts drastically at the end of the story, it ruins it. It's kind of the same way we are with our days. Like if you have a great day and then at the end of it you get awful news, your day is ruined.
Yeah.
So like with Signs, you are constantly intimidated by these aliens and like they're coming and they're gonna take over and blah blah blah, and they're hyping it up. And what defeats them? Wood and water. These technologically advanced creatures show up to our Earth and are defeated by Dasani.
So the Wicked Witch of the West was one of these aliens.
Not a sponsor, by the way.
I haven't seen the movie, but
You haven't seen
You
Signs?
haven't seen?
I haven't seen Signs.
Have you seen Wizard of Oz?
Of course.
Okay.
I've even seen The Wiz, which we shouldn't talk about.
No.
Isn't
we don't talk
that's
about that one.
that's the Michael Jackson
Yeah.
one. With that movie's really creepy.
Okay, so we're going to shift back into the conversation here, but in a sense, Michael Jackson. A lot
that's
of
a
new,
big one.
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
a lot of new evidence and stuff like that has come out about stuff that he
Did
Allegedly
allegedly did. But what does everybody think about that? Everybody just thinks it's like, oh, he's some amazing singer. He's the king of pop. He's because that's what the media and everything points you towards. We can only take what's given to us, and unfortunately the media is never going to give us the truth.
See, I remember it differently. Like, yes, everybody adored Michael Jackson, but when these things were happening in real time, I was in high school at the time, I remember everybody just suddenly turned on him.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't been following that. I don't know what the evidence suggests now,
Mhm.
but
I think and I was much younger than you guys were, but when I actually like got into middle school, I started looking into it because I was just interested in what was what. And there was a lot of weird stuff of like money exchange from him and parents of sick children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, why are you paying for a child to come to your house when they're sick?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's a private monetary exchange between you and a parent.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, Timmy gets his chemo paid for, but it's just really, really evil stuff.
And it is.
Well, and that's the issue with how we perceive heroes in our culture, is we like to prop people up, but they can have these dark pasts we don't even know about.
Right.
And they can fall easily. The flip side of that coin is that they can make one tiny mistake that's not a big deal, and everyone will turn on them. I'm not saying that's what happened with Michael. I'm just saying that the public is ready to turn and be judgy on a moment's notice, turning on a dime like that.
Well, and I find it interesting because you had mentioned it of, real time when stuff like that was happening, everybody was starting to turn against him. And I am not a Michael Jackson fan. I don't know. It's just his music just didn't really, appeal to me.
And you're entitled
like
to your
that.
wrong opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
you're really wrong.
Yeah, I'll be wrong in that. I don't have a problem with that. I just, I never really grew up listening to him. So I never really grew up like with his music or anything like that. And so, but, you're saying, real time events happening, people were starting to turn against him, calling him horrible. All of these different stories were coming out with him. And then what happened when he died? He became an icon.
Yeah, he's an angel again.
Yeah, everybody praised him. They started doing hologram shows for him. All of these different memorabilia stuff popping up everywhere. Well, then here just recently, over the past year and a half, new evidence has come out about what he was doing on his little ranch or whatever, Neverland or whatever the place is called.
Yeah, it was something like that, which is just. Wow, what an awful name for it.
Right.
How did he not get sued by Disney on that one? Is Peter Pan public domain? Does anyone know?
The story of Peter Pan.
The story of Peter
public.
Pan, but I don't know if the word Neverland itself is public domain.
That I don't know. I mean, it would associate with the story.
Oh gosh,
that's beside the point.
Peter
anyway.
Pan on Perception versus Reality. I don't know if we want to get into that, but that's
another time. We need to just start a movie podcast.
That would be very interesting because I could bring up some good stuff on
Oh, you know about that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
I have some theories on that one.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, here recently, evidence has come up depicting Michael once again as a pedophile, as, a child molester, this horrible person, and the media and the public have started to turn against him again because of what the media throws out. And I mean, I hate to just kind of keep kicking that dead horse.
Yeah.
But again, it's like when it comes to reality, what is reality anymore?
And it's hard to know.
Right.
Again,
what is
everything relating back to Star Wars? I'm going to say that Michael's music was Anakin and Michael was Darth Vader.
I don't know. I think
if
Michael's
we're
music was better than Anakin.
Okay.
Michael's music was phenomenal, and his actions were much worse than Darth Vader.
We're separating one persona from the other. As a musician, he was brilliant. As a person, maybe not so much.
No, definitely not so much.
Yeah.
And his father was Darth Sidious.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on that one.
And again, out of left field, but everyone's afraid of nuclear power a lot because of 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
And really, that accident wasn't that bad. There was a lot of equipment damage, but there was no significant release of radiation from the plant, and nobody got hurt.
Right. It just makes it like, where when that stuff happens, once again, I'm sorry, the media throws it out there on how horrible this is or how horrible it could have been, and that puts fear in people's eyes. Because what is the media's tool? Like, what is their most used tool? It's fear. Mm-hmm. If they can put the fear into people or, you know, hatred or division or whatever, then they can throw out whatever they want and people will soak it up like sponges.
Fear is the path to the dark side.
Fear leads to anger.
Anger leads to hate.
Hate leads to bad
Suffering.
stuff.
Hate leads to suffering.
Suffering, not good. Man, I'm basically Yoda at this point.
Oh,
You do kind of look like him. You're a little shorter.
oh.
Yeah. Thank you for that. With perception versus reality, the thing you said about the media, the reason it seems like the media has so much control is real journalism isn't profitable. It's much more profitable to hype things up and over exaggerate and pit people against each other than to just be like, hey, this thing happened, might be good, might not be good.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think it was an interview with Jon Stewart. You guys remember Jon Stewart?
Mm-hmm.
No.
He was being asked if there's a liberal bias in the media, which we're not going to talk about that. But one of the answers he gave back is, I think it's become too sensationalist. Like this had this attention-grabbing headline over this mundane story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge problem because everyone's perception is altered in that way.
Yeah.
Well, also we're kind of like at these super crazy heights of things. Every little thing has to be a big deal that you can't just kind of be at peace. So we're kind of fed this anxiety about life that when maybe we should be more calm and relaxed. You know, it's like, oh, this awful thing is happening over here, but you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to not get sucked into all the stuff happening
Yeah.
globally.
It's World War III, man.
Yeah, but it's World War III every other day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Well,
you got to live your life.
And that's the thing is like everything tends to circle back to everything's going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's never this war over here between Ukraine and Russia is happening and it's just between UK and Russia and
It's between the United Kingdom and Russia. You
gonna-
said UK. Not
I was
Ukraine.
I'm sorry, I meant Ukraine.
Yeah.
I meant Ukraine.
That would be an interesting war between Great Britain and.
If everyone stayed out of it, good luck, Britain. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's like you see that and then you're thinking like, okay, we're here in America, it's not going to bother us. But then what does the media do? They throw this out there of, oh, it's horrible. It's going to, Russia has missiles that can launch all the way to California, which
I mean, they had that
Oh,
during the
no.
Cold War.
right.
That's not new.
I mean, it's nothing new, but they keep bringing the stuff up. COVID happened and, then what? Somebody saw an oversized bee and, oh, now there's, killer bees everywhere.
Murder hornets.
Yeah, murder hornets.
Not Mordor hornets.
Mordor hornets.
I can't talk tonight.
That would be
Dude.
an interesting pandemic right there. But
That would be.
That'd be so much worse than COVID.
Oh yeah, yeah. We would all die
Yes.
except the elves. Well,
Where are the elves?
are they Santa's elves?
No, they're in Connecticut. I know.
they're in Rivendell.
Oh. Is that in Connecticut?
I have no idea where that's.
Okay, it's probably in Jersey.
I don't watch the show, so
This show.
Rivendell, Riverdale.
Riverdale? You did Rivendell? Nice.
No, Arendelle is the place in the Frozen
Elendil?
franchise.
Yes,
but-
Arendelle.
All right.
I'll
So
do it.
another thing I want to bring up is that the people with the deepest pockets tend to write these narratives.
Yes, I agree.
For instance, with the hot coffee thing, McDonald's started a smear campaign to paint this lady in the wrong light. And one thing I wanted to point out is human nature is to be like, oh, we're smarter than that. Ha ha, lady, stupid. Without actually taking into consideration what might actually be going on in such a case. McDonald's was found to be criminally negligent. They were setting all of their coffee machines way too high.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we all just think, oh, lady, stupid, because they started a smear campaign because they had the money to do so.
Yep.
People are like surprisingly quick to jump on old ladies. like whenever there's like a story, it's like, oh, grandma's losing it. It's never like, oh, maybe they were wrong.
Right.
It's always like, oh, that Karen. It's like, dude, You just like took a sweater she was knitting for her grandchild and threw it in a puddle. Like it's not, oh, that Karen, it's you're just a tool.
Yeah. And and again, it's based off of, and I agree with what Dave said, it's whoever has the most money. I think the reason OJ won was because he had the most money in that courtroom. I mean, dude was a multimillionaire, at that time. And he had money to just spend on that case and on his, his lawyers and stuff like that. And I mean, it even, afterwards, he writes a book saying, I didn't kill my wife, but if I did, and then depicts pretty much to detail what happened to her.
So if, like, it's kind of a thing where he realizes everyone thinks he did it already, but they can't charge him again, really.
It's that Double Jeopardy.
So he's just gonna...
Good movie.
He's just gonna... That's a movie?
That is a good movie.
Double Jeopardy is a movie.
When did it come out?
Early 90s?
Yeah, we'll figure that out later. Tommy Lee Jones. It's a great movie.
It is a very good movie.
Yeah. So with perception versus reality, I think it's often the way we view people we view as bad and how they view themselves. Like, evil people always like to perceive themselves as good in their own, like, twisted way. So
that's a universal truth in war. Everybody thinks they're the good guy.
Yeah. Adolf Hitler thought he was the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he thought he was reuniting the German states that surrounded Germany, and that he was, obviously he's wrong, but he thought he was the good guy. Stalin thought he was the good guy. Mao, other bad people in history.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I want to bring up to Dave, and I got a question for you, because you had we kind of spoke on it just for a second. At what point does the truth not become the truth anymore? It's like, again, we get what the media gives us.
Mm-hmm.
And, and people all the time, they say, like, well, if you don't trust the media, go do your own research. But how do you do research? You go to a different media platform. You go to, Google, you go to, Bing or, DuckDuckGo or anything like that. And you do these searches, and then you go to Wikipedia, and then you go to, Fox News or CNN. And all you're doing is you're getting your intel from different media sources. So at what point does
you can't verify that those media sources aren't biased,
right?
And this is exactly why real journalism is so hard, because you don't know that. I mean, you can only go by all the information you can find, and
I think the concept of unbiased journalism is kind of a farce. I don't think there's ever been unbiased journalism. I think there was a time where journalism was less biased.
Okay.
And it wasn't the goal of it.
Yes.
In most cases.
I'll agree to that.
But I think there was always a slight bend in one direction or another. Especially in regards to, like, political stuff.
Yeah. Who's backing my broadcasting company, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is if you look at a lot of corporations now, they're very there's a ton of bureaucracy and fluff that doesn't need to be there. There's like too many editors for every single article that goes up on a website. It's like, we need 8 editors and 3 board advisors, and it's like, and just let Susan write an article about what she's mad about and throw it up there. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you did that, you might get more biased stuff that's a little sloppier, but maybe it'd be more authentic.
That's fair.
I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying there's too much, like, systematic control over journalism by these big companies.
The scary thing is that this is exactly what the internet was supposed to be against. Like, information was supposed to be freely shared over the internet, and now we're finding biases and censorships in the place where we're supposed to be able to find the truth. So, to answer your question, sometimes you just can't find the truth. Sometimes it's extremely difficult or even impossible to get a real handle on a situation. So you have to kind of trust your own instincts.
Right.
That's kind
based on all the information you have. Sorry, no.
No, you're good, man. With the whole conversation of perception versus reality, I think it's important that we ask ourselves, is there a reality? And my answer would be yes. Like the West is kind of in this intellectual struggle right now between objective truths and my truths. And if we just have our truths, then left isn't left and right isn't right and up isn't up. I mean, it's just whatever. Because once you throw out the objective, you have no way. You don't have a reality. You're just a thing experiencing other things in a subjective manner. So perception versus reality is I think it's we perceive that we have our own truths, but truly there's only one truth. And I wanted to know, like, Jonathan, from your perspective, how do you think we can address that, like, in culture? Like, addressing the subjectivism that we're facing.
See, it's hard to really know because, as we talked about, like, what exactly is the truth. The only way that you're going to know the truth is by, being in that situation. The only person who truly knows if OJ killed his wife is OJ.
It's OJ.
He's the only one who truly knows that.
Wait, nobody asked him. We should do that.
We should ask him.
You should ask him if he did it.
Yeah. We'll invite him to the podcast, and then we'll ask him.
I don't know. He might kill me.
Ooh.
Well, we'll start it off as just talking about his movies. We'll talk about The Naked Gun.
Isn't he really old now? Can we outrun him?
I'm sure you probably could.
And then we'll just slip into like, hey, by the way, did you murder your wife?
You do it.
Oh, by the way, you were really great in this movie. I loved Nordberg in this scene. And by the way, did you murder anyone lately?
Okay.
Just out of the blue.
If we were able to pull that, it'd be like Joe Rogan, who?
Right.
We got OJ to
we got OJ
to admit that he killed his wife on camera. Well,
we don't have
not yet, but for that episode we would.
Yes, we would have a camera for that one because you have to have proof. But that right there is the thing. Is like the only way that you're actually going to know the truth is by being in that situation. Anybody who really knows me, I do not trust the media. I don't like watching the news. I don't really even like listening to the radio, like news and stuff like that, because there's, as you said, there's that objective truth and then there's my truths, but the objective truths are just my truths given in a different platform. The O.J. Simpson thing, again, nobody's going to know except for him. The Casey Anthony case, and I know you said you don't really want to get into like a whole lot of like the murder trials and stuff like that, but that is what society gears towards.
Murder.
Towards murder. I mean, they really do. Anytime that there's a shooting or there's a death or anything like that, it gets hyped up. And the Casey Anthony case, everybody was such against this woman, and nobody's going to know if she really killed her kid except for her. And, it's like, how do we address that as a society? Unfortunately, I don't think we have an answer for that.
Yeah.
I want to see the Judge Judy murder trials.
Like she murdered someone, or
no? I want to see her preside over a murder trial.
Oh man,
and have it televised. But Jonathan, I wanted to interject, but you were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Sorry.
But the way you just said, you don't trust the media and you don't watch the news. They know that, and that's why they're getting more and more desperate to come up with these sensationalist headlines. I think.
In a way, I do agree with that, because there are those who don't trust the media, so it's their grasp at trying to get them back. Yeah. At the same time, you get those that trust nothing but the media, and how do we keep them here? We over-sensationalize it. We throw these horrible scenarios out there. I remember, and I think we talked about this on one of the shows before, but I remember a few years back, there were talks about the national power grid and how easily the national power grid can be hacked. And if you set off a nuke, 1 mile above the ground in a certain location, 1/3 of the entire nation would lose power. Nobody needed to know that. I mean, literally, nobody needed to know that.
Thank you for telling me how to disable a third of the nation.
Exactly.
That's great.
Exactly. And then what happened here, after the regime change? I say regime because, I mean, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, every 4 years.
Yeah. After, Biden was elected into president, what happened? Russia hacked our system and held us at ransom for, a solid couple of months. And it's just like, nobody needed to know, that if you set off a bomb at a certain location, then 1/3 of the country loses their power. But it was something to bring fear into people's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the sheep that grasp that and they soak it in. And,
Unfortunately, I think it's a worldwide problem, but specifically in America, we have a gullibility problem.
Right.
People are too willing to believe trashy news, essentially.
It's because we have a really uneducated populace.
Yes.
And
that's the way they want it.
So the way you're describing it is almost like
That's an
a
Orwellian
drug
concept
to an
right
addict.
there. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But
What was Orwellian?
what Jonathan just said about they want people uneducated. That's an Orwellian concept.
Yep.
If you control the education, you control the people.
And the government controls the
and that's why they're
education.
attacking private schools and homeschooling, because they want you in their system, because in their view, your children belong to them because they're evil. So that wasn't the point I was making.
Yeah.
But the
Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I love that you pointed out it's Orwellian, because the whole world is becoming more and more Orwellian as we go, which is really sad.
He tried to warn us, people.
He did. So with what the way you're describing it is, it's like a drug to an addict. You need that next high. It's that's how the dopamine receptors works. They're always looking to get that next buzz or a greater high or whatever. And then when you were talking about media information, it reminded me of a quote from Denzel Washington. Obviously, we all know him. Equalizer, Flight, like great films. And he had a quote, which was, if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. If you do watch the news, you're misinformed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's entirely right.
Right.
And what Dave was saying about the internet being made to stop that or fight against that, in some ways it really has. Because we can do things for now, like have this discussion here and have a position that may not be the mainline perspective. And other forms of alternative media can do that, whether they're on the right or the left. So
But
I
at
think
the same time, we need listeners too, because if nobody listens to this, then what does it matter what we discussed here tonight?
Right.
true, but there's larger people doing the same thing we're doing, like the Ben Shapiros and the whatever. And then from a smaller perspective, guys like John Doyle or Fuentes, and whether you agree with them on everything or not, I certainly don't. But there's alternative, and on the left there's the Young Turks. Like there's these alternative media sources that are separate from these, big far right or far left company news stations. Like in that way, you can have more freedom in what you're actually saying.
Mm-hmm. And I know this is going to be like a little bit of the bias thing, but that's something that I really like about our show is, we're not geared towards one particular outcome.
Yeah.
We don't just talk about politics. We don't just talk about, we don't talk about religion, all the time, or, certain things like that. We talk about whatever we feel like talking about, whatever comes, to us at the moment. And, it's not like we're sitting here trying to beat people over the head with what we believe is the truth. Yeah. It's, we give our opinions. And if you don't like that, that's not a problem. We're all entitled to our own opinion. We're all entitled to our own truth, as crazy as that sounds.
Unless you're wrong. Then stop that.
But who's to say who's wrong?
Me. They're wrong.
That's the one thing that I find very confusing
You know, how much easier would life be if everybody would just stop being wrong?
Right.
Yeah. Today's lesson: don't be wrong.
Yes.
Do be right.
Yeah.
Just
don't.
cut out the being wrong thing, and we will all live in harmony.
Could everyone just not?
Just not.
Don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whatever you're about to do the opposite.
Right. Don't listen to Nike.
Do
people.
not hug your children.
Oh, goodness.
They don't need it. They'll be stronger for it if you neglect them.
Don't listen to Nike. Just don't do it.
Yes.
You know, and that right there is something that I think about too, you know, and I know this kind of like shoots off just a tad, but at the same time, it leads back into our conversation some of, you know, you listen to these commercials or you listen to these ads, just do it. Go with your heart, you know, listen to your heart, that song, you know, that type of things like that.
Song.
You know, it's like you listen to these things, and I feel like as a society, we take that too personal, and it leads us into this Orwellian state where we don't know what the truth is anymore because so many people have gone out and just did it. You know, they just got her done that, you know, everybody just like, you don't know what's happening anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and again, to kind of answer the question, I did take a second to really think about this. If you really wanted to, as a society, get to what is the actual truth, there you would almost have to have video evidence nonstop. People would have to wear body cams like police officers, or you know, unfortunately, like all these sci-fi movies and stuff like that, where they implant chips in your brains where they can look through your eyes and see everything, and you know, that type of stuff. That would be the only way that anybody would actually know what really happens.
The Minority Report kind of plays with that idea. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
It's not one I've seen.
Okay.
I've heard about it.
Well, yeah,
but-
it's this essentially the concept. There's like these people who they like plug their heads into, and the government can see the crime you're going to commit before you do it, so they can prevent all crime. Well, the problem is this guy is like a cop, and they tell him he's guilty of killing his wife or whatever. He's like, I wouldn't do that, and I haven't done it, so you can't arrest me. But he's going to objectively do it. So it's this thing of he knows he wouldn't kill his wife. That's quote unquote his truth. But the objective reality, the fact is he will. And it's like that movie will mess with you.
Yeah.
It's terrifying film. Like the thoughts in it, not the film itself. It's kind of fun. But
There's another show. It's on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's called Black Mirror.
I don't have Netflix anymore. I haven't.
I
had it for a
avoided
while.
that show because the ideas in it scare me.
I watched a couple of episodes, and there was an episode where, kind of along the lines of what we're talking about, where they would, in order to get anywhere, you had to give video verification of what you've done within the past like day or whatever. You know, so in order to like get on the train to go to work, you had to, you know, you'd put your hand down and they would scan it, and it would show on the screen where you could rewind up to 24 hours of what you did that day. And it's frightening to think about that, you know, but at the same time, it's like, okay, now I know the truth of what you're saying. You're saying you didn't kill your wife, but let's back it up and let's watch through your eyes as whatever happened. You know, and I know this is kind of conspiracy theorist, that type of thing like that. But, you know, it again, it leads to that objective reality of what is going to be reality nowadays.
Yeah.
Weird. It's gonna be weird.
You know,
Like what's the thing? Every other month there's a new normalize this, normalize that.
Yeah.
I think we should stop normalizing. I think we should start calling people weird. And that doesn't mean like go bully people. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
Love people, be good to people, be kind to others.
That's the thing. The lines are being blurred between bullying and simply pointing out, hey, you're kind of different. You're doing something different. You're
Hey.
being different.
Hey,
Right.
you're different. And they're doing different things to be seen as different, and then they get offended when they're called different because that's part of the ego trip.
I take offense to the whole I'm offended thing. If you say I'm offended by X,
Well, then screw you, bud.
if you're saying I'm offended by X and therefore we need to outlaw it or whatever, you're basically saying my opinion on X is more important than anyone else's, and therefore I am right, and all of you should follow whatever I'm saying, and that is so wrong.
Well, from that perspective, they're not saying my truth is affected by this, but when it comes to legislation, they're saying my emotions at whatever given time determine objective reality.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a ton of implications with that, but I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to get canceled and kicked off the show. I'm just going to leave that. Don't vote with your emotions.
That's the thing. Like our country was basically founded with checks and balances, so emotion doesn't rule, and now people are trying to circumvent that completely.
Right.
Well, because they know emotions, the emotions of people are the most powerful tool. You know, you think of the movie, and again, you know, movie podcast, Monsters Inc.
Oh yeah,
You know, such a great movie. It's such a good movie. And what did they use the screams of the children as their power source. Well, then what do they realize is better? The laughter is the better power source because it creates more power and things like that. So they fed off of the emotions of these children to feed their lifestyle or their world. And the media, the government, your next door neighbor, they feed off of the emotions of other people. That's how they get their power. You know, it's like a lot of...
That is an excellent metaphor right there.
I think that a lot of the government officials would actually be fired if it wasn't for the fact that they feed off the emotions of their constituents.
So that's the other interesting thing is we're supposed to fear these quote-unquote elites, these other outside forces, but they never fear us.
Yeah, and that's wrong.
That's the problem.
Our government should fear us.
Always.
But the thing about it is they do fear us. That's why, you know, right wing is considered terrorists now, and you're considered a psychopath if you own a gun, or, you know, that's why they want all of these red flag laws in these states. And, you know, it's like, you don't tell me that I can't, you know, do something with my own body. That type of thing is they do fear us. That's why we get these laws, and that's why we get these big emotional things. Do you guys remember? And I mean, obviously it's still a very touchy subject. The day that Roe versus Wade got overturned, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, Wicked Witch of the West. I will go out there and say that I do not.
Which means she's probably an alien.
Very possibly.
Somebody
I mean,
needs to get her a Tylenol. I'm sorry. Like
she looks like
help.
she's in constant pain.
She needs help.
But I remember, you know, she, for whatever reason, came out and did a press conference. Very first thing she said is, "This is a horrible day for women."
Yeah.
And what did she do? Emotions. It's horrible.
And that's
You know,
precisely why we shouldn't legislate on emotions.
Yeah. It's going to be
When-
great for all the women that aren't going to be killed, though.
Yeah. Emotions can be manipulated.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why everything is Star Wars, because that's the whole plot of the of the prequel trilogy.
How do we go from abortion to Star Wars? I don't... Like, that was such a leap, but I'm fine with it.
Well,
At the same time, I mean,
you did mention that Pelosi looks like she's in constant pain. You know who else is in constant pain?
Darth
Vader.
Sidious. Darth Sidious.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader, yeah,
Yeah.
he was in constant pain.
Yeah. His cybernetic suit was engineered to hurt him because the Emperor feared that he might overthrow him, so they were deliberately limiting his power.
Although I feel like, you know, our president right now is kind of like Darth Vader towards the end, because he doesn't quite know what's going on.
Have you seen the video of him and the Pope talking?
No.
So Joe Biden walks up to the Pope. Literally my favorite Joe Biden video.
That sounds like a setup to a joke right there.
No,
Yeah,
so
Joe
like-
Biden walks up to the
So
Pope.
he walks up to the Pope and
it's
they're
Joe Biden.
he shakes-
Everything's a joke.
He shakes his hand and they're smiling. And he looks at the Pope and he says something like he's like, "You are the very famous baseball player." And then the Pope is like, "Thank you."
Oh my.
Thank you very much. And it's my favorite clip because it's like, you are the famous baseball player. And the Pope, because he doesn't know English well, so he's like assuming he's saying something generic and nice. So he's like, oh, thank you.
Oh,
So,
goodness.
so interact with us on social media with the setup. So Joe Biden walks up to the Pope. Finish the joke. What's the punchline of that one?
Yes, we want to see your best
Yeah.
joke. You know, and not to get like, again, you know, and we're sitting here, we're talking about this, and you know, there are people who, for whatever reason, praise Joe Biden, and you know, and things like that, and it's once again, it leads right back into the reality of the situation. Is, as a country, we are screwed. I mean, we really are. When you think about the people that we have in office,
I can think of three.
That's not a fear-inducing
I can-
statement at all.
I can think
No.
of multiple left-wing candidates that would be more competent. And though I wouldn't prefer that, if there was going to be someone in the opposition in charge, I would not pick him.
No, but I mean, at the same time, you know, it's like left wing, right wing, straight down the middle. Anybody is scary.
Yeah.
You know, because again, what was the one thing that you said starting this whole conversation? The person with the deepest pockets writes the
Yes.
narrative.
Yep.
And, you know, we saw that in this last, you know, the election before last. Now, I will go out there and I will say, you know, I did not fully agree with Trump. I did not agree with everything that he did.
I honestly only thought he was doing it for the attention and for the prestige. And I still to this day don't think he knew what he was getting into going in.
I don't think he did either. But at the time, he had the deepest pockets.
Yes.
He had money to spend. He still has money to spend. Now the one thing that I liked about Trump is they went back and they showed, you know, he was worth billions starting off. And when he left office, he actually lost value in his person. Whereas you look at all of these others, you know,
Oh, they gained so
Clinton,
much money.
Bush,
They're called career
Obama.
politicians for a reason.
Yeah, they gained so much money. And, you know, again, it's scary to think of like this next election. The midterms are coming up here soon. And, you know, what's going to happen? The person with the deepest pockets, the person who can pay the most money in their campaign is going to be the one to win.
That's why Bernie keeps getting snubbed. I mean, I don't personally want Bernie, but a lot of people on the left want Bernie, and Bernie keeps getting snubbed.
So the one.
I feel the same. Sorry, Noah.
No, you're good.
I
was
feel the
cutting you
same
off.
thing is happening on the right. We don't get candidates that we actually want. We just get candidates who happen to be rich and don't necessarily have our best interests in mind.
Leave Ben Carson alone. He's a good man.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the thing with Bernie is for all of Bernie's issues, if you watch what he's actually voted for, more than most of the people in the Democratic Party, he's been willing to reach across the aisle and make concessions.
Yeah.
Him and Ted Cruz in 2018, they actually passed a healthcare bill, reform bill, that was a moderate bill. And if anyone else other than those two were trying to pass it, both parties would have said no. But they understood the power they had, so they got something done that should have been done.
Yeah. Amazing what happens when people actually start doing their jobs,
Right.
elected
Right.
officials.
Well, the thing Jonathan said earlier about you own a gun, so everyone thinks you're far right, and all these radicals. I go on the news all the time, and I see these posts, and it's like these far right Nazi extremists, and I'm like, no, those are liberals. Like from where I am politically, those are leftists. Like, I look at Trump's policies and I'm like, oh, so this is Obama. You look at his policies. He's not pro-gun. He's pro-LGBTQ. He's socially far left. Like, far left.
But what happened? The left completely turned on him as soon as he ran as a Republican.
Because it was not about policy. It was about teams. If it was about policy, that would have been, oh, he's doing a lot of the same things as Obama, and we like him. Because that's essentially all he did.
Yeah.
Where there was a few issues where he obviously clashed with the left, but policy-wise, he was almost the same as first-term Obama, as far as I'm concerned. Now, whether I'm right or not, whatever. But it's just interesting how people perceive radicals. It's like, do I consider myself a radical? No, I consider myself a rightist, obviously, clearly. But I wouldn't consider myself a radical because I'm not spurred towards violence. I'm not spurred towards hatred. I think that's kind of what would define a radical, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, it's it's that narrative again. It's that my truth type thing where if you don't believe the way that I want you to believe, you're a radical.
Right. Yep.
You have one thing that you don't agree with me on, then I'm gonna make everybody hate you, and that's what what ends up
And I'm
happening.
going to throw every label I can at you until a few stick.
Right.
You're a racist, sexist, homophobe,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, I am not racist.
That's the one you stop at.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, to each his own, I guess. But it's like I think about the here recently, and again, we talk about it. The mass shooting that just happened on 4th of July in Illinois. I don't know if a lot of people really have caught that story.
I heard about it, but I don't know anything.
Yeah,
any of the
so
details.
I don't remember the guy's name, but a 21-year-old kid perches himself on top of a building as a parade is coming through the town. It's the 4th of July parade. It's a big celebration for that town. It's a small town. But then he just opens fire and ends up killing, I think he ended up killing like 7 people and, injuring a bunch of others. When you go to look at it, they, the first thing they talked about was how horrible this was, how guns just need to be, it's like this shouldn't have happened here because Illinois has the most strictest gun laws in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And and I remember seeing the one thing that they talked about on this a certain social media platform was that he bought the gun legally. That's all they kept saying. He legally bought the gun. He legally bought the gun. He bought the gun legally from such and such.
They found the 1 in 10,000.
Exactly.
They did it.
Now, here's one thing that I bet a lot of people didn't know is the same day that Roe versus Wade got overturned, Biden signed into a bill a new gun safety bill.
Okay.
That was going to regulate the sales more, make it a lot harder for people to buy guns.
Naturally.
Right. And I've heard this multiple times. Politicians never give up an opportunity for chaos.
No.
I may have said that wrong, but they
never
they
waste
capitalize on it.
You never waste a good crisis.
yes, that's what I
it is.
meant.
Anytime
Never
there's
waste
a
a good
tragedy,
crisis.
I use it to push my agenda. It doesn't even matter what side of the aisle you're on. You're going to use
Right.
it to push your agenda.
Right.
This tragedy happened because they're wrong. And then if you're on the other side of the aisle, oh, this tragedy wouldn't have happened because they're wrong. And it just keeps going back and forth. And everybody wants to post, memes and whatever about, how their way of thinking is the right way and this tragedy wouldn't have happened. And it's stupid and it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it makes me think, and I want to bring this question up to you guys is, I know this is conspiracy theorist type thing, and, I try not to get too involved in them, but how much in reality are these mass shootings? Okay, they're horrible things. Kids dying. I mean, people getting shot just going throughout their day. If you guys remember the whole, the Las Vegas shooting, all of these people that died and stuff like that. But all we hear about is how horrible it was because the person owned a gun. But it makes me think, like, what are they not telling us? I mean, you look at society and we see that so many people have mental issues that should be able to stop them from owning a gun.
It's an epidemic in its own right, the mental issues.
And it really is. And I'm not trying to be, we need to ban guns or leave my guns alone. I mean, I want to be straight down the middle when I ask this question, but how much of reality are we really getting with these things, and how much of it is what the media just wants us to see?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone knows the true story aside from the shooters. Just like the OJ thing, only he knows. And I honestly think we are being deceived, manipulated, and directly lied to about some things.
Yeah.
You know, it scares me to think, you know, because you see all these mass shootings and these elementary school shootings and things like that. And again, it's that fear of, well, if you've really noticed, like, there were these mass shootings in churches for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Churches were getting, were getting shot up, and then that didn't quite work. So what did they do? They went to school shootings, high schools, and high schoolers, were dying and things like that. Well, that didn't grab enough of their attention. So what did they start doing? They started going
elementary
school shootings.
Yep. Let's kill more children.
And I will say this, and I know we kind of had talked about this and recent, just between us and things like that. I really wonder how much of these mass shootings are politically motivated to fit their agenda. Because if you've ever noticed, like this last one that came up, the one thing that was brought up on all of it was the fact that he bought the gun legally. Yeah. We know nothing else about the guy. That's it. Nothing about the guy, just that his gun was purchased legally.
Right. Which is extremely rare in these cases, because it's like more than 90% of firearms used in homicide are legal, and 85% of those are handguns rather than rifles, which is why laws against firearms, they just don't work. The thing I always like to say is, if they worked, your opinion would be valid, but they don't work. If you actually care about saving lives, it is an objective fact that gun laws fail. If in all the places that have the strictest gun laws, they have the highest crime rates. There's a reason for that. Okay, some of that is urban culture, but some of that is also because gun laws don't work.
They've disarmed too many people and they can't defend themselves. So the criminals are going, hey, easy target.
Yeah. Well, you look at Chicago, and I know a lot of the right wing, they really go towards that, towards Chicago, and this leads to what Dave had said a moment ago about one side pointing the finger and being like, well, if this wouldn't have happened, then this chaos or this crisis wouldn't occur. And you look at Chicago. Chicago is one of the strictest cities in gun laws, and yet there are shootings every single day. Yeah. But that's stuff that the media doesn't cover. Why? Because it doesn't fit their agenda. It doesn't lead to enough fear into the people. People are literally dying, every single day in that city.
But so you have to understand, they're being killed by handguns. Handguns don't look scary. Like we talked about earlier, policy being fueled by emotion. If you were to show people how many, like, they've done tests where they take a gun that has like a lot of wood in its design, but functions similarly or even more aggressively than an AR-15, and the people are like, oh, this one's okay, but the AR, no, because it looks military, it looks tactical, it looks scary. It's like, I can get a lever action with a bear hunting round in it that is way more lethal than a 5.56, which is a very small round. It's an intermediate cartridge. It's not even a big cartridge. And that's fine because it looks safe. But this is black and it looks scary and military, so we're just going to... It's all fueled by emotion. It's meant to terrify. They want you scared. Why do they want you scared? So they can have your firearms. And why do they want your firearms? Ask Australia.
Because they're afraid of us.
Ask Australia. What did Australia do?
Ask Ukraine.
Well, yeah, but it's a double standard because they're fine with Ukrainians being armed.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever. But with Australia gave up the guns, and during the COVID thing, they had concentration camps. They weren't being quarantined. They had concentration camps. And if you look into and this is more conspiracy theory territory, but I think it's really freaking obvious and documentably true, but if you look at what they were doing, there was so much far left propaganda being shown in those camps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Australia, since they gave up their right to bear arms, or what little right to bear arms they had, their freedom took a nosedive. Same with Japan. Like, Japan is happy, but they're not free.
Mm-hmm. And they tried. I know they tried doing that with us. With America on these quote unquote re-education camps that they wanted to open up. For these right-winged conspiracy theorists, terrorists. Things like that.
Again, George Orwell tried to warn us about all of this.
Well, they're like, you voted for Trump, you're a far-right extremist. I'm like, do you even know what some people on the right think?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are people on the right who genuinely believe in Christian nationalism. They literally think that.
Mm-hmm.
That is, they like to say that's what Trump is. That's not what Trump is. He's a generic frat boy conservative. He's not really a threat to leftist ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just, let them attack the straw man. It's like with the NRA. They always try and attack the NRA. The NRA hasn't done much for gun legislation at all in the last 20 years. They've actually hindered it. The Firearms Policy Coalition, they've done way more, fired way more lawsuits, and they make almost nothing off it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the left keeps attacking these straw men that they think the conservatives are, and in reality, all the conservatives are hiding behind it. And like, yeah, sure, go after them. Ignore us over here being actually conservative.
Again, perception versus reality.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, and I know we've talked about it multiple times, and I've said it multiple times. I think the perception of people is only going to be what the media gives us. Because to quote, what you said earlier, that Denzel Washington said, if you watch the news, you're misinformed. If you don't watch the news, you're uninformed.
Yep.
And so it's like, again, it's all perception.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I think we are living in a non-realistic world anymore, because of the fact that everything is perspective, everything is perceptive. It's what I want to see, and that's it.
I wish we had another hour, because we really need to talk about some solutions to this, because this is dire. This is very depressing. We took a very hard turn. And
supposed to be a happy
We
episode.
did, yeah. We may make a part 2 on this one,
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks or something like that. Because this is a very deep conversation that we could spend episodes after episodes talking about this.
If we don't get assassinated first, once this goes out.
Yeah.
Hey, we did not mention Hillary, so we're safe.
You did.
You just did.
then.
You stupid.
Dang it.
Hillary killed the radio star. So, assuming we're all still alive once this goes out, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm Dave.
I'm Noah.
And I'm John.
Thank you for listening.